quite an interesting film. This is one that myself and my co-reviewer, The Core, used to threaten to rent back in the late 90s when we saw this in global video on videotape. Never got around to watching it, but I was always intrigued by it. Now, it's only in recent times I realised this film, Flesh Eater, Revenge of the Living Dead, also known as Zombie Nosh in the UK, was produced and directed and stars Bill Heinzman, who some of you might recognise from the original Night of the Living Dead. He was the main zombie in that film. Well, he kind of plays the same character in this. So let's look at the synopsis as per the back of the DVD case. So, a group of attractive college kids with lust at the top of their agenda set out on a hayride. They come to rest at a picnic site, unbeknown to them, once the setting for barbaric satanic rituals and rumoured cannibalism. By accident, the sinister forces of a bygone era are unleashed, and a blood-susting Zomol emerges from its tomb, and he's peckish. Having enjoyed a starter and a main course, the deranged creature, adept at mutilating his victims in the most imaginative fashion, is now ready for dessert. The youngsters seek refuge in old Spencer's farm, but the phone lines are dead, the power has been cut, and time is running out. As the zombie makes a meal of his young prey, each victim in turn replicates its living dead master and begins seeking out his own mates for immortality in a hell of eternal darkness. Timing couldn't have been better for this carnivorous clan. It's Halloween, and they're heading for town to join in the amputations celebrations. So that's the basic synopsis on the back of the DVD case, anyway. So yeah, quite an entertaining film, to be honest. I've waited about 20 years to watch this thing, and I dare say it's not hugely entertaining. It's fairly standard, especially by today's standards. Zombie movies, I've seen much better, but I've seen much worse as well. And it's kind of interesting because this does have a connection to the George Romero films. Obviously, it stars Bill Heinzman, and he also directed it as well and edited it, from what I understand. And I think Bill Heinzman is basically, as I showed you in that intro clip, he was the original zombie in Night of the Living Dead, which is kind of the original zombie movie that set a lot of precedents that zombie movies after that kind of followed on from. Not least the George Romero ones, but the entire genre. So Bill Heinzman really was. He's kind of like the Sean Connery, James Bond in a lot of ways. I mean, you can say, well, there were ones before that, but he was really the first one that kind of entered the frame. And others copied since. So in a lot of ways, he plays the same character as well. I mean, I don't think this film is trying to be canon with the George Romero movies, but there is connective tissue both behind the scenes and in the film itself. I mean, if you wanted to say that it was in continuity with those, you'd have to face some fairly fundamental continuity questions. But obviously, like I say, it has the Bill Heinzman, the main zombie or ghoul, as he was known in Night of the Living Dead. It's also got one of the army guys that, if you remember the very end of Night of the Living Dead, spoiler alert if you haven't seen that film, but I'm sorry, but it's been out for over 50 years. Right at the end, when the main character gets shot in the head, the black guy gets shot, the guy that pulls the trigger, he kind of looks like a really old Robert De Niro. That was kind of the way I describe him. But if you've seen the film, you know who I mean. He was one of the guys in that. He's in this, and he plays a very similar character, and he even has a very similar scene to that where he shoots two non-zombie civilians and kills them both, actually, in a scene that is very similar and a massive throwback to the end of Night of Living Dead. There's a few other little things in here as well. There's certain bits where there's these sort of redneck characters going out and shooting zombies, very similar to Dawn of the Dead. Well, there's bits of it in Night of the Living Dead, I guess, as well. So there's a lot of connective tissue between the two films, really, Night of the Living Dead and this. Now, obviously, I'm referring to this as Zombie Nosh, that's what it's called in the UK. On the American version, obviously it's been an American film, so the real title of this is Flesh Eaters, which again ties in with Night of the Living Dead, because that film, one of the original titles for that was going to be Night of the Flesh Eaters, but they went with Night of the Living Dead instead. and it says Revenge of the Living Dead as kind of like a subtitle, from what I understand, in the USA. So, like I said, this is a film that I remember knocking around in the late 90s on videotape, and it was one that myself and my co-reviewer, the Core, used to like say, we've got to rent this film one time just because it looks so bad. If you look at some of the imagery on the cover, I think this might have been the same imagery that was on the VHS back in the day. And I don't think we could really bear watching this film that we thought would just be so bad and so low budget. But only in recent times, like I say, I've actually got to understand the connections to this film genre that I love, specifically the George Romero movies, and knowing that it was Bill Heinzman that was in the film and directed it really made me want to watch this. It's not actually as bad as I thought it might be, to be honest. It's not a great film. I think some of the reviews I've seen of this tend to be middle of the road, kind of 5 out of 10, just average, which I think is fair. I wouldn't say it's a bad film at all. I mean, to be honest, some of the effects in this, especially to say that it is a low budget film, they're actually pretty decent and quite effective and quite imaginative as well, and leave you thinking like, well, did they use prosthetics for this? Was that a real hand? Is it a fake hand? You know, that kind of thing. A few little things like that just kind of kept me guessing anyway, just because of the way it was filmed. So interesting to see certain little things of this take you by surprise. In the film itself, like I say, I'm really bigging it up here in that sense. I mean, the film is quite predictable. There's a lot of gratuitous nudity in this as well. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it is 1980s as well. So you know, some of the ladies aren't quite as groomed maybe as they should be in certain bits. But it's pretty much a titty romp at some points in this film. There's one bit where there's a woman and she like strips her clothes off because she's about to get in the shower, and you think, oh, she's gonna get attacked now because you know she's naked and all that. And then she goes into the shower, and it's like, well, she didn't get attacked before she was going in the shower, so is she gonna get attacked in the shower? And it's like, no, she just has a shower, and we're seeing her there with her titties out, and you know she got everything else out. And it's like, well, she's not getting attacked here. She gets out of the shower. She's gonna get attacked as she's coming out of the shower. No, she's just still walking around naked. Oh, she's drying off now. She's put a towel on, and she's still not been attacked. We've literally just seen this woman showering for like no reason. It had no sort of purpose at all, other than the fact that this is basically a titty romp. So you know, if that's also something else that this film's got to offer, I guess. But you know, if you like that kind of thing, well, this will be right up your street. Core, and if you're watching this, I know you like this kind of thing, so you will, I think, get something out of this. So yeah, interesting film. And like I said, not much else. I don't want to go on too much about this, but I was entertained anyway. I thought it was decent enough, and I've seen far, far worse. Like I say, I mean, there's the George Romero films. There's kind of some of the ones that are surrounding it, like there's the remake, Night of the Living Dead. It was 1990, I think. Tom Savini, that was the makeup guy on Dawn of the Dead, and a lot of zombie and horror film makeup effects. Really good, pioneer pretty much in his field back in the day. He directed the Night of the Living Dead remake, so that belongs on your shelf. I think George Romero oversaw that as well, so that belongs on your shelf with those films. The remake, Dawn of the Dead by Zack Snyder, was pretty decent as well. I think there's a sequel to that coming out, from what I understand. I'm not a massive fan of that film, but it was good enough. I understand it's got its own fan following. Day of the Dead remake, Stay Well Away, one of the worst films I've ever seen, and I think there's even a sequel to that as well. God knows why. And then there's Return of the Living Dead, which has its own kind of behind the scenes connections, 1 and 2. Beyond number 2, I didn't bother with number 3 onwards because I think they go downhill from there. But Return of the Living Dead 1 and 2, I think it was the co-writer or the producer or something of Night of the Living Dead, owned some of the rights, hence it was a sort of spin-off, genre spin-off movie franchise there. So again, that belongs on your shelf with the George Romero films. I would say get this and watch it, see if you enjoy it. You probably will if you like those other films. And this has its own place as well on your shelf with the George Romero zombie films. I don't think it's one that a lot of people know about. Hence, I thought I'd do this review, just kind of a shout out there, because this has been out there for 20 odd years on home video at least. Probably been longer than that. It came out in '88. I mean, obviously that's over 30 years ago, but I just remember seeing this up about 20 years ago. And like I say, I haven't watched it, and I'm a fan of this kind of thing. So maybe you haven't. If you haven't, give it a watch. You probably enjoy it. Anyway, I've rambled on for quite a bit. So one other thing I will say about this film, it is set on Halloween specifically as well. So this is a Halloween movie, so fitting that I should throw this in as part of this 7th annual Brand X Reviews Halloween special. Now, we'll be continuing this review series tomorrow. So come back tomorrow on the channel, Brand X Reviews on YouTube. And for now, we'll just leave it there and say thank you very much for watching.
Get ready for a night of total terror. Noshing Nora, the Noshing zombie, is back, and she's after the core. She's gonna nosh you off, core.